Now, more about sex. No, I'm just kidding. I just want to see if you're awake for a moment. Why don't we have a moment of silence and draw into the power that brought us here and keeps us here. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So here we are on a beautiful day, gathered together, seeking God, seeking recovery. Who knew? So we've talked about step 4, we're going into step 5. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which when completed will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we've done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. So, that lays it out. And when we go into 6 and 7, we're going to talk further about what is absolutely necessary. But the deal is, I wanted to go into my room when I first got sober, take this big book like a self-help book, do the magic, and come out shining. And what really happened was I went into my room, I started to try to do this by myself. I started to write inventory by myself, and I got terrified. I got terrified and I got overwhelmed. So I really needed to be with somebody else. And when you have a lot of shame, when you've done things that you wish to hell you never had even come close to, when you not only have shame, but you have this disgrace in you, it's not so easy the prospect of talking to somebody else. So luckily, if we have people in Alcoholics Anonymous who will talk about the truth, it will encourage us to understand that they, like ourselves, are damaged goods. And it's okay. So I wrote my 5th step. I 5th stepped it with my sponsor. I was attracted to his wife. She was really very pretty. And now, did we tell somebody else our whole life story? No, I'm sitting on the A-bomb here. And I'm not going to say anything about it. So I found somebody else, and I told him, I think she's attractive and whatever. My sponsor comes back to me, he says, you want to sleep with my wife, don't you? Oh, man. So anyway, that got all cleared out. And since then, I'll tell you this. I told you I do annual inventory with my sponsor every year. I also 10-step with my sponsor every Friday at noon. And I will tell you that I'm afraid to call my sponsor. I'm afraid to call my sponsor because I'm afraid of being judged, right? What's wrong with you? Well, luckily, my sponsor is an alcoholic. And he's been so kind to me. And the worse I feel about me, the more afraid I am to talk to him. I got this great sponsor who treats me with kindness. And he talks about himself. And if he can share on the subject, he does it with me. Because, you know, I know a guy who was getting ready to speak in Oklahoma City once. And this man had to speak in front of him because he had to get going. And he said, I just got one bit of advice for you. Give them heaven. They've had enough hell. I'm not saying we can't be direct. I'm not saying we obviously have to be truthful. But it doesn't mean we have to climb down somebody's throat like we can fix them. Only God can fix them. I learned that one day in early sobriety because I was that same Mickey, only worse when I first got sober. And I knew that I was endangering my sobriety. So what happened is I would go over to Denver General Hospital to the alcohol ward, the alcoholism ward, and I'd ask the head nurse, do you have anybody new? And she'd say, yeah, you know, like room 4. And I would go and sit in room 4, and I'd ask the guy, how long are you going to be here? And he said, 3 days. And I said, so am I. And I would sit by his bed. And here's what happened. This was a great lesson. So I'm there, and I'm giving him all I've got. I'm like brand new in AA. I don't have much. So I'm telling him about what's what, and I'm trying to encourage him and this kind of thing. And so there's 3 people in the room. My guy went out and got drunk, and the other 2 got sober. You know what I mean? We are pencils in God's hand. He does the healing. He does the healing. Would you like to talk about 5th step?
Sure. The beauty of 5th step, and I was nervous. I had never, when I was growing up, my brothers and sister made great fun of me because I have a larger nose than they did. They had pug noses. I have a nice nose, big nose.
Yes.
He tells me, well, the very first thing he said when he met me, and this is after a life of being made fun of for my nose. They called me elephant and, you know, all these things. The very first thing he said when he met me was, I love your nose. So I knew he was a keeper. But, so they would make fun of me. So I would be at a party or somewhere, school or whatever, and I would always have to be in a position where nobody could really see my profile, right? That was really hard. I mean, that's a lot of management, you know, because, you know, you're going like, okay, maybe they, you know. Well, that's exactly how I was with the 5th step. It was like, you know, this person can find out this part of me, and this person can find out this part of me, but nobody's going to see the whole picture because it's really put together is really bad. The truth is that we were talking about this at lunch. We can see each other so much better than we can see ourselves because we put this standard on ourselves that we wouldn't even begin to think of putting on somebody else. You know, I have to be perfect. You can be fallible. I'll still love you. You're fine. You can make a mistake. You can apologize, but I have to be perfect. And one of the things about the program and in our marriage is that we can see the other guy and we can share that back and say, you know, that's not so bad. You're not as bad as you think you are. I for a long time, I would and still once in a while do. I apologize for being me. And Mickey won't have that. I mean, he absolutely won't have that. He says, you're not going to do that to my wife. And I've been able to give him the same kind of support, I hope. Maybe not as often and maybe not as verbal, but, you know, he is not as bad as he thinks he is. And I can say that to him. And it's the same thing with sponsees and sponsors. And you know, we can say to each other, you're not as bad as you think you are. That standard is not what you have to live up to. And so the fifth step is one of those places where, you know, you give the worst. You give the absolute bottom line worst that you've been. And mostly what you get back is, you're okay. You know, yeah, you've done some really rotten things, but right now you are okay. And you're even more okay because you've shared them. And so I love that now. I mean, I was petrified at first to do it, and now fifth step is like the relief. You know, I want to finish my inventory so I can fifth step it, because fifth stepping is, I get to hear that I'm okay. You know, yeah, you said it. Yeah, you did it. You know, and I guess that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. So when we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have a written inventory, and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner that what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Man, what a program. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. We pocket our pride and we go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. So these are the fifth step promises. And so when I got sober, I would be in a discussion meeting and they'd say, Mickey, what do you think? And I would have to stop and poll the committee inside of me. Which Mickey is going to respond to this question? Right? So it says here, we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Please forgive me, this is just coming over me like. So I remember not too long after my first fifth step, I was sitting in the chair in our living room, and I was looking out the window, and all I was doing was watching the wind play with the tree in the front yard. And I realized that I had some peace. And I can't tell you, my time in AA, how many times I have heard people say, all I want is some peace. I just want to have some peace. And that was just me and that tree. And that was a good deal. That was lovely. The rest of these things, I didn't have all this stuff that I read to you. I got that one. They reached into the lottery thing and pulled out that one for me. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we've done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we've omitted anything. for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? So going into the 12 steps to work this program, I have this expectation. I'm going to work these things, and the sun's going to come out, and the angels are going to sing, and I'm going to be all scrubbed, and I'm going to come out the man I want to be. It turns out I do this, and I walk out, and I'm Mickey. But what I've done is I've tried. All we're being asked to do in Alcoholics Anonymous is try. I'm not in the results business. We've heard that, right? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to spend some time with God and say, you know, I call him boss a lot. Am I doing okay, boss? Are we making any progress here, boss? You know what I mean? And I really, truly believe that the reason I haven't gotten that lightning bolt is so I can be with you. So I can be with you. I can be with you no matter how wrecked you are. I can be with you no matter how scared you are. I can be with you and swap stories all day long. And you're going to find out that I put my pants on one leg at a time just like you do. There's a word that I hate. Now, I'll give you my favorite word first. My favorite word is safe. I love that word. My least favorite word is guru. All in all, we're just another brick in the wall. Right? We are just all bricks in the wall. And there's a priest by the name of Thomas Merton. Maybe some of you are familiar with him. And he wrote this book, New Seeds of Contemplation. And I've carried that book in my life for over 50 years, and I've only read 5 chapters, and I never looked at anything else. But he said the faith journey is like a man in a pitch dark room fumbling for the light switch. Maybe some people get rocketed into the 4th dimension. I've kind of crawled. Seriously. But what it's done is it's kept me under glass. People will make remarks to me, and I'll tell you about one. Now, please understand that what I'm about to share with you is not bragging in any way. So, we had a woman come, and she walked by our shop. We have it in our garage. I say we have a convertible shop, because all we do is raise the garage door, and you're in our shop. And she got to talking to us. And this, what I'm about to tell you is about all of us. It's about all of us. So she was from Texas. She was a CBS producer. And it was at the time of that terrible Aurora theater shooting. And the psychiatrist for the man who shot and killed 12 and shot 70 people, his psychiatrist lived directly across the street from us. And so people would come, the journalists would come, and we saw her knocking on the door across the street. And then she saw that our door was open, and I said to Marie, oh, it's too late, we can't get it closed. And she came in and she talked. And we started a conversation. You know, I really am interested in people. I think our stories are pretty cool. And so we started talking. Now, Marie likes to have hello, goodbye, thank you very much. This producer and I talked for over 2 hours. I knew about her divorce. I knew about what's up. The whole thing, right? So we didn't see her. And then, what was it, about a year later or something, she calls up and she said this. And now this is true again of all of us. She said, Mickey, I think about you and Marie all the time. And she said, by all the time, I don't mean monthly, I don't mean weekly, I mean every day. And she said, could I come down and have a talk with you? And I said, sure. I figured maybe she wanted to order some boots or whatever. You're always welcome. She sat down and she says, I think you ought to be on Sunday morning on CBS. What? And she said, Mickey, I want you to know it's not about your boots, it's about you. Now I'm even more confused. I have absolutely no idea what this woman is talking about. She said, Mickey, nobody ever leaves your shop unchanged. And it took a long time for, and incidentally, turns out Sunday morning at CBS had no use for me, and it was fine. But it took me a long time to figure out what happened in that shop. What happened in that shop is she was touched by the God in me. And I was taught when I first got sober that a realized person, when they get on a bus, they change the whole bus. And I'd been having these things like I went into a Safeway supermarket one day, long time ago, and I put my like 3 or 4 items on the conveyor deal, and the checker, this young woman, rolled it towards her, and she stopped and she looked at me and she says, you're a psychiatrist, aren't you? I said, no, I am not a psychiatrist. And she said, you really understand people. Last one. We were up at Fellowship of the Spirit and one of our locations, and there was a hot springs close. You know, you could go in and boil your body. And they had a swimming pool and whatever. And so the lady who owned the shop, she was picking the towels off the rack, and she turned around, she says, you're a doctor, aren't you? No, I'm not a doctor. When we make a God-sized hole in our souls, God takes up residence, and the God in me will touch the God in you. This is not some exercise. I'm telling you it's true. If you've ever been around somebody and you just feel instantly safe, that's God. So it's just real interesting what happens to us in here because we are being transformed. We are being transformed from the person that we invented and that disease condemned us to the person that God made. And these things are like the little stick that God gives us. Here, Mickey, hold on to the end of this stick. He's got the other end. Just hold on to this stick. Okay, boss, I'm holding on to the stick, and he's doing all the work. And I'm holding on to the stick. I don't have to be perfect in here. But I tell you what, he's moving us. And what he's moving us away from spending our lives. We're going to work on that defect in our character. We're going to work on this mistake we've made, instead of abandoning ourselves, which the book says, utterly to him. Utterly. We lose the firm ground under our feet. We go to him or her or whoever you believe in, utterly. And that is transformative. So we'll talk more about that. That's coming up in chapter 58. No. Anybody have any questions or thoughts? I saw the hand almost go up, and then it became a hair fluff. I like it. How much time do we have? Okay, and how many more sessions are we going to have? Oh, my.
Okay.
Okay, man.
One of the things that happens also after fifth step, typically at least, is that those defects of character that we have unearthed seem to show up even harder. You know, it's like I'm going, wow, boy, I was really selfish, and then without any guarding against it, I am like extremely selfish, and it's like a beacon. But I have to be woken up. I don't know if that's the way it is. I see some heads nodding, but I really, truly, I kind of plant my feet after a fifth step and say, okay, here it comes,
And the value of a yearly fifth step is that we get the whole build-up, we recommit. It's not like we're just saying, just buff up the chrome, I got this, It's not like that. If we do this, it can be absolutely as effective as if we had never done this. We get the power, again, at a deeper level, Tell you what I mean. It's like, once again, we know, there's a title for this book, and it's Chuck Chamberlain, and it's not what I'm talking about, but we get a new pair of glasses. So what I didn't realize, 1311 York Street is where I got sober. It has a double staircase up to the door, and it looked like I was looking up at Mount Everest, it was like. And I was going to go to my first AA meeting. And the only spine that I had was my London Fog raincoat. I got nothing. And I looked up those steps and I said to myself, once I go up those steps and open that door, my life's never going to be the same. And it turned out to be absolutely true. What I didn't know is when I reached for that handle to open up the door, I was also opening up a door in a parallel world that we call the world of the Spirit. I had no idea that was happening. But I'm reaching for that door, and I'm going to open it into the world of the Spirit. Not the people in front of me, not the beautiful woodwork in that club, but God. Now, I will tell you this. I'm just talking about my life and our life. I see everything in that world now. Everything. I see everything in that world. I see you in that world. I see what we're doing in that world. I see the task I'm given. I put my forehead on my sewing machine or on my bench, and I surrender myself to God. I see all of that in that world. Isn't that something? And you would think if that's happening, then ooh. No, but it's like the great reality is not just within. The great reality is all around us. It's all around us. And every prayer is heard. Every whisper is heard. Every thought is heard. And P.S., if you're not saying nice things to God, believe me, it's okay. He's heard it before. Right? We're not going to crush him. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to say on this. We're going to probably fall short a little bit on what we have to talk about, but maybe not. I want to talk then. Do you have something else you'd like to say?
No, just that maybe in later is an answer to a prayer. So I hear a lot of people, as they're going through the steps, they're going, well, I prayed and it didn't work. And I always ask them, what does work mean? Work means he did what you wanted him to, or he answered, not yet, or maybe, or no. No is an answer.
Okay, so what we're going to do as a revolutionary move is we're going to say that we no longer have a 12-step program. We have a 10-step program. Okay? 10-step program. What we're going to do is we're going to throw out 6 and 7. Come on. Everybody knows there's like about this much written in the big book on 6 and 7. It really can't be that important, right? I mean, forget it. We'll just throw it out. Okay, so what would Alcoholics Anonymous look like if there was no 6 and 7, right? So we got a file drawer full of all of our defects of character, our stories of woe. We got all this stuff. We got a disease that's going to eat us alive. So we got all that going on. And what we start doing, and many of us do it, and I can understand that, is we want to go over to the 12 steps and 12 traditions so we can get more tonnage. We want more words, because then that's going to be better. But it's really a very simple program. It says, we've gone through and we've looked, and if we've done the first 5 steps, if we've skimped on anything, then we correct that, and then we move forward. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. The only way we're going to be rid in any sense of our defects of character is if God moves them. And what we need to do to cooperate with that is be willing to let go. So the little boy is in the next room, the father hears him crying, and he comes in through the doorway and he's got his favorite train, and it's broken. His little toy is broken. And he goes to his father and he's in tears and he says, fix this, fix this. And the dad's sitting in the chair looking at him and he loves him so much. And he said, I will fix it, but first you have to let go of it. All right? We have to let go of it. And then we go even further in this. When ready, we say something like this, and then I'm going to get into step 7, where we humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So this is Dave's favorite story. I saw this movie, Joe versus the Volcano. Anybody else see that movie? All right. Joe versus the Volcano. That's Marcella. She's in tune, man. She's got it. So there's a scene in there where Tom Hanks' character is out there and he's sort of marooned after the ship sank, and he's on these steamer trunks that he bought for this mission he's on. Meg Ryan's behind him. She's unconscious. They're in the South Pacific. It's nighttime. And Tom Hanks is on his knees just looking at the horizon, and the moon starts to rise. And the moon is like this big. And Tom Hanks gets up on his feet and he's looking at this moon rise, and he's like this big and the moon is enormous. And it comes back to Tom Hanks and he says, I forgot how big you are. What's that got to do with step 7? In your honor, Dave. I'm going to go into the face of God and I'm going to ask him to remove my defects of character right in his face. And that's the image that always comes to me. And I'm going to say, would you, now 6 and 7, which are useless, you understand. I'm going to say, will you fix me, boss? It's kind of a love affair, really. But it's also daunting. Because here's what's happening. Trying to let go of our defects of character, we have to understand they're asking us this phenomenally deep proposition. All of our defects of character, that's what we've stood on. That's what we've motored around on. That's how we do business. That's how we live our lives. Okay, Mickey, are you willing to let go of the way you live your life? Because it's not these individual things. I want you to let go of your life, son. And mine is to lie occasionally. There are always little white lies, you know, understand. And it's that kind of stuff. It's no baloney. Are you willing to let go of your life to me? And then we go and actually ask him. And if you'd like to join with me, I would love it. If you know the words to the 7th step prayer. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, the good and the bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. So the carpenter asked his apostles one day, he says, if your son asks for bread, would you give him a stone or a snake? And they go, no. And he said, how much more, and you are sinful fathers, how much more will your Father in heaven give you if you ask him for it? I had this flash about 2 weeks ago. What is the purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous? That's a very tricky cup, isn't it? There it is. There it is. That cup has its own mind. And we may not get the answer that I came up with or that was given to me. Alcoholics Anonymous' purpose is to lead us to total surrender in God. That's why it exists. Why would he want that? Well, he gave us this disease in the first place, so let's examine that for a moment. Is it possible that he gave us this disease so we could be glued to him if we're going to survive? Any disease which lashes me to God is good. It's painful, but it's good. So, well, what does that mean? So I sponsored a guy in Staten Island, and he, as it turns out, went to this convenience store for years, and he would pay for 3 12-packs of Pepsi and take 6. He'd been doing that for years. Finally, it dawns on him that it's time to make amends, and he tried to calculate up how much he'd stolen, and it was about $300 worth. So he goes into the convenience store. Now, this is in a city where it has a reputation for being very, very tough. Everybody's the enemy. We don't cut anybody a break, and we got to protect ourselves. So my guy goes in there, and he's talking to a man from Afghanistan who owns this shop. And he's trying to tell him, I've got this deal I've got to give you some $300 on. And it's not easy, okay? So he says, I am an alcoholic, and I am in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I stole this, and I want to pay you back, even though, it's gone through many owners. And the guy's looking at him, and he goes, and so finally he accepts the money, and he said, what organization do you belong in again? Alcoholics Anonymous. There's one guy in New York City who is not trying to protect himself. He's not trying to cover up. He's not going to shield himself from you. He's going to go in and tell the truth. Another guy stole a comic book from a newsstand when he was a kid, and he lives in Brooklyn now, and he went in and he paid for the comic book. And we show up like a light. We are living testimony to the existence of God, because I have no visible means of support. You cannot see who sustains me, and I cannot see, but you can see by our actions. No medicine, no nothing can save us. Only God can save us. Well, that must mean that God exists, because there's more than 3 of us. You know what I mean? Anyway, what would you like to say?
One of the things I want to say about the 7th step, 6th and 7th step, is that it's not asking God to approve of and grant us our picture of our life. If anything, it's asking Him to reveal to us the extent of our defects, at which time we become more and more willing to let them go. It also does not mean, remove from me my defective husband, or take away this other person's battles. Sometimes we look at our children and we think, oh, they can't deal with that battle. I want you to take away my child's battle. But the truth is that battle is honorable. That battle is important for that person. And we don't have a right to, first of all, probably not going to be answered the way that you want it to be, but if you're looking at the question, God, would you remove from my child or my spouse the battle that they are going through with alcoholism? That's not what we're talking about. And I've found, I think I said it before, sometimes we get the blinders taken off our eyes in 6th and 7th step, and we see how deep the corruption and the wound is in our life. So it's very active, it's very short, it's very direct, but it has consequences that are major important.
Thank you. Okay, so we go out and we make our amends, and the technique of this, and there's many stories about this, are in the big book, and we follow that. And once we do 7, it's move on to 8. I put a prayer across the top of the page. I have a left column and a right column. I put the person's name or the institution or the principle on the left. I put the exact nature of the harm on the right to my lights. And then I don't go and make any amends until I've discussed it with my sponsor. And if people discuss it with me, I can't tell you the number of times we've taken that amend off the list. Because they may be trying to get back with the old girlfriend, or you know what I mean. It's like that's not it, and it's not. I'm not making an amend for hating that person. Walking up, as Marie talked earlier, about somebody coming up and saying, I've hated you for years, is hardly worth the air that it took to do that. It's about who did I harm? Who did I harm with what I've done? My first go-round on this, everybody was willing to see me except for one couple, and they said, we don't want to see you ever. I don't even remember what the injury was, but that's fine. I made my move, and I did what I could do, and that's that. So step 8 is a formal process where I sit down in prayer and review. Now, the person may not be in my inventory. It may be somebody. Who was talking about years? They finally made an amend after years. It was up in here.
I don't know.
25 years it took to make an amend. I don't know. Oh, it was maybe at lunch. Or maybe it wasn't. Anyway, so the point is, oh my God.
Thank you.
I'm turning into Charlie Brown's Adults. So I prepare for it, and then I go out to make my amends. And depending on what happens, have I made an amend to you? And then if they have something to say, I listen. We're not doormats. We don't grovel before anyone, the book says. We're trying to do this thing, shoot it straight. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about that. We're about running out of time for this session, which will leave us this next session for 10, 11, and 12 for some rock and roll. Anybody have any questions or any comments? Gosh, we must be doing a wonderful job. It's wonderful to be with you. Why don't we take a break? Thank you. Okay, by now we, can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. By now we know the drill. We're going to take a moment of silence and spend it with our higher power who brought us here and keeps us here. God,
God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay. So we are moving on to step 10. The common wisdom sometimes is that there are two optional steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. Step 9 and step 10. Little heresy for the moment, I'm just putting it out there. And step 10, if you're going to have a discussion meeting and you make it on step 10, odds are 9 times out of 10 you're going to have a meeting on the 11th step, which is yet another inventory. We have many inventories through our program. Well, I want to talk about step 10 now. We're going to talk about step 10 now. Let me find my place here. Okay. First of all, let's just read the 9th step promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. It doesn't say economic insecurity will leave us, I'm just saying. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. So apparently there's some progress to be expected in here. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, nobody's too bad for this program. Nobody's too bad. Nobody's too dumb for this program. However, there are people who are too smart for this program occasionally. Just putting it out there. This thought brings us to step 10. Did you want to lead on this? Okay. Which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. How long should it continue? For our lifetime. Apparently, alcoholism is not going away. Curses. Continue to watch for all right, so here's the Tai Chi of this. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So it's interesting. What are they telling us to do? To watch for it. We're not saying when it hits you in the head like a 2x4 falling off a scaffold. It's really we are watching for them. Continue to watch for them. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, not if, we ask God when? At once to remove them. We discuss them with somebody immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. That's the Tai Chi of the 10th step. That's what we do. It tells us what to do. Why do we not do it? The reason we don't do it is because what it says, we discuss this with someone immediately. And now 1,000 excuses come up. Well, I can't disturb that guy at work or that gal at work. You know, I know they don't get home till midnight or whatever it is. We get all these excuses that come up and allow us to not do this. And I will make you a guarantee. I'll make you a promise. If you resolutely, if you frequently make the 10th step effort, it will revolutionize your life. I'm not kidding. It will revolutionize your life. I've got a guy who calls me, the way I work in working with others is, one of my sponsors one time said, Mickey, you're not central office. You've got to make room to work, and I work at home, so I could be on that phone all day long instead of doing my work. So my deal is that you can call me Monday through Friday, 4:30 to 6. On Saturday and Sunday, I'm married, and I want to be with my wife, and I want to have some peace and quiet, and I want to be able to accomplish things. Now, if you're really in trouble, you call me when you need me. I'm not saying that if you call at 11:30 at night, I'm going to answer the phone. I will be asleep. I'm not trying to be cute about that. I had to set some limits. Okay. Or I do it this way. I sponsor people all around the country. So, and I even sponsor a man in London. And so, he's not here at the moment. We'll talk when he gets back to London. Anyway, so what I do is I tell people that I sponsor in these other states, talk to somebody. Have somebody you can talk to immediately or as soon as you can. But I want you to keep a little book of what you talked about, of what your problem was, and call me on our designated day, and we will talk for half an hour every week about your 10th step or about things that are bothering you, and we'll do that. So that's not immediately sometimes for them, but they have the intention of discussing the things that are bothering them. I don't know what I would do if I did not have the 10th step of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, Marie and I live together, we work together, we're together 7 days a week, most of the hours of those days. So I will 10th step with Marie, unless it's about Marie. Right? Almost never. No. And for her, it's the same thing. But anyway, no, we will 10th step with someone else because that's only courteous. So we continue to watch for, which means we have a habit of leaning into the dark side, to the shadow side of our being. And we're not trying to run away, we're identifying with it. So recently, I don't know, a year ago or something when we were with Gary and Julie in Indianapolis. And for the millionth time, I'm 10th stepping my fear of flying. And so I do it with Gary. And I finish my talking about it, and he goes, "Did you make the turn?" I'm going, "What?" "Did you resolutely turn your thoughts to someone else you can help?" And what I got from him in saying that is, we can watch for those things, we can discuss them with somebody as soon as we can, but the motor of it, the engine of it, to actuate that is to turn our thoughts to somebody else we can help. That's the engine of the 10th step. Isn't that something? You can learn something every day. So, and we make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. I can't tell you how many times I've said, "I'm sorry and I'm wrong" to my wife. I mean, we live together. That's the person we see. You know, we're coming into contact. And sometimes it gets a little claustrophobic. and who's boss around here and like that stuff.
No.
And then there's this interesting thing about if we're going to worry about seeing a gin bottle or whatever else, it says, and we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. Isn't that something? We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. What? It does not, in case we missed that part, it does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So it's not like this just drops in without having, 9 steps behind it. And before we are halfway through in our amends, we are getting the benefits of this. We live and move in miracle country. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous is. We're in miracle country. Truly. And what does it mean? This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. We're working our program. We're working our program. Okay. Would you like to say something?
Sure. I know this does not happen in AA. It happens in al-anon, where somebody calls and they whine for an hour. You guys don't do it to each other, I'm sure, okay? But we have that a lot in al-anon, okay? So that was a joke, but anyway.
Or not.
But, I could listen to whining for an hour. Not really, but I could. But one of the most wonderful practical parts of the 10-step is to listen for 2 minutes and then ask for them to take responsibility for the 4 things. So if somebody calls and is, grousing about their spouse or the kids or whatever, their work or whatever, it is such a beautiful tool to be able to say, okay, take responsibility for the 4 things. Do a 10-step. And so then they're focused on their own fear, selfishness, self-seeking, and dishonesty. And it also works with husbands and wives. And so oftentimes when we are whining to each other, one or the other of us will say, do you want to do a 10-step on that? And it's practical, it's non-offensive mostly. Sometimes it's a little offensive, but it's a tool. We talk about the tools of the program. This is one of those tools that absolutely works. And it's quick and it's easy. And you can often get a call from somebody and be off the phone in 5 minutes and they have done their work. Mm-hmm. When I meet with my sponsees, and most of them I meet with them for an hour a week, they're calling with 10-step. And I ask them to do their 10-step, write it down or know their 10-step before they call. And which really focuses their attention on the tools of the program. And sometimes I get lazy and I just say, well, how was your week? And then it, goes on and on and on. And then I remember, this is about helping somebody utilize the tools of the program, and this is one of the most powerful tools, because what we're doing is we're focusing on the solution. And what else was I going to say? I don't know. I'll interrupt if I remember.
Yeah, we have the right certainly to complain. I mean, we're hurting, we're frightened, we have something going on in our lives, or we wouldn't be on this phone with our sponsors. So they have the right to say, here we go, and this is what's really going on. And I say, now, for the good of your soul, why don't we do a 10th step so that you can get the blessings and the benefit of going to God with this. So they really start to accept responsibility, as Marie said, for what's going on, and it shifts away from that person, and it's now shifted onto them, and their call has healing in it. And it's really, really, and so I believe in economy of operations. So let's not make this thing into, like I know people, and it's nothing wrong with it, I'm sure. It's not for me, but they write down their nightly review, they write everything about it down, and I'm going like, dude, I can do this thing in under 2 minutes and really be paying attention to it. And it's the same with the 10th step. And I ask people, if you're going to call me, please prepare. Please prepare your 10th step before you give me a call, because then you're ready, you're talking to the heart of the matter, you're going to be blessed and healed by having done that, and we're going to go chop chop. It's not to scoot somebody out of my life, but I'm trying to invite them into God's life. I think a good sponsor is a cheerleader for God. You shake the pom-poms and say, go this way. Go this way. Any questions? Rah, rah. A t-shirt. He's got the t-shirt habit now. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just feel to share this. Because Don Pritz was so busy, I shared with you that he would just shuffle off commitments to other people. I had my first commitment when I was 1 year sober to go and speak. Oh man, I was on the circuit in Ulysses, Kansas. Oh man, high doings now. I'm going to Ulysses, Kansas. I was scared to death. I'm in the airplane with Bob O., Marie, and I, and we're flying in a converted C-47, which is a DC-3. Prop job, right? This wonderful lady, Navy nurse, corpsman for 8 years. So I keep hitting the military note with you. No, Marcel, I love you for it. I think it's great. All right. So we're flying in this thing, and we're going off to Ulysses, Kansas, and it's wintertime. And so the plane starts to go down. You know my history with planes, and it's he's going down, he's going down, he's going down, and then it's he's going back up, and I'm going like, okay. And he comes on the squawk, and he says, well, folks, he says, I don't know how to tell you this, but I can't see the runway. I can't find it. Okay, you and me, God, right? We're going to do it. This is the deal. And so he says, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go around one more time, and if I still can't see the runway, I'm going to fly you over to, where was it? Amarillo, or I don't know where it was. It was someplace. I'm going to fly you over there, put you on a bus, and you can go back into Ulysses. So he tried it again. He couldn't see it. They fly us over to wherever this was, and we get off, and we are the last bus, the last vehicle to get into Ulysses, Kansas, on the heels of an ice storm. Wind's coming in. It's like black ice. We're going in there. And while we were in the airplane, Bob says, I want you to meet somebody. How many of you ever heard of a lady in Al-Anon named Arbutus O'Neill? Okay, Arbutus O'Neill has been credited with, among other things, as being the founder of Al-Anon in Texas, and she gave the best AA talk I ever heard once. But anyway, her husband was doing a tape of the month club. So we're going in, and this is 1974. And so we're going in here, and Bob says, I want you to ask Bill to tell you his life after life story. I said, okay. He said, just go ask him. And I said, all right. I said, how will I know him? And he says, oh, it's easy. He's missing one of everything. So I go in and I see a guy with one eye and one arm. I said, you must be Bill O'Neill. And I said, Bob told me to ask you this story about life after life. This is, again, the spiritual side of our lives, and what are we? I tell you, we're in miracle country. So anyway, Bill said, well, he said, I don't normally tell this story anymore, but he said, I died in a hospital on the gurney. I flatlined, and he said, and you've heard the familiar, to stay with me on this one. And he said, I came up out of my body, I looked down and I saw them working on me. And he said, and I looked over and there was this tunnel. There was this light and a tunnel. And he said, I started walking down the tunnel. And he said, and I got about halfway to this light at the end of the tunnel, and I got tired. And he said, and some people came to help me to get into the light. And he said, I recognized them. They were people in AA that I knew that had died. And they're now with me, and they're helping me to get to the light. So he gets to the light. And he said it was just this unbelievable, beautiful experience. And the voice was talking to him, and he said, Bill, I'm sorry, you got to go back and finish your mission with the tape club you have. So he said, I started back down the tunnel, and he said, I got tired about halfway down, and he said, I sat down, and some people came to help me. And he said, I recognized them. They were AAs, but they had not died yet. And he says, they helped me down. I got to the mouth of the tunnel. All the meters jumped, and I came back. I'm 1 year sober. I'm in Ulysses, Kansas. When we got to the desk to check in, they gave each of us a candle. This is like I'm going, where am I? Beam me up, Scotty. I don't know what's going on. But you see, the stories we're hearing, they're not stories about, man, you should have seen how much I drank last night, or man, you should have seen that woman I took advantage of, or, it's not like locker room stuff. We're talking about a new world, miracle country.